Training or diet? Which is more important? Well, I've already made a video about the topic, and this is not a revised edition. This is not an updated version. That's important. Today I'm simply going to look at the thing from a completely different angle. So which is more important? Well, what do you think? Because what you think is more important is the one that is going to be more important. If you think diet is more important, the way you think about diet and training is going to lead towards actions that will result in diet actually being more important. And the same is true when you think that training is more important. But it's not that simple, because there is an ultimate answer at the end of the day, which you will find at the end of this video. But first of all, let's start with me thinking that diet is more important. I used to think that diet was more important, and that was precisely because my training was shit. And since my training wasn't good, I needed at least one thing that was dialed in, and that became my diet. Because when your training is shit, you're only really going to make progress if your diet is good. It really depends on how shit your training is, because if it's really bad, you're not even going to make gains, even if your diet is perfect. But if you have a bad program, usually you can still make gains if your diet is really good. The problem is, as soon as there's something going on with your diet, it's not going to work anymore. So for me, for an example, if I wasn't in the big enough calorie surplus, bye-bye progress, no progress anymore. If I was just maintaining, even if I had enough fat to recomp, nothing happened. I didn't recomp. If I was cutting, I was glad if I could keep all my muscle mass, obviously. And even when I was bulking, if 1 week was off for some reason, I didn't eat enough, it was already done for that 1 week, and it already influenced a lot of my progress. And so the thing that became the deciding factor when it came to whether I made gains or not became diet. So with that said, diet was more important than training. And with that, you can also see that it's really a little bit like the chicken and the egg. You don't really know which one comes first. Do you first think that diet is more important, or do you first have shit training, your diet becomes more important, and then you think that diet is more important? It really doesn't matter. It's just an endless circle of hell until somebody somehow manages to convince you that training is actually more important. And that is exactly what happened to me. I heard from people all the time that, oh, training is actually the more important part. And I've heard it so many times that first I didn't really believe it, then I started believing it more and more, and then my training and my diet changed, and it started actually reflecting that. And it became true. You're essentially manifesting whatever you think is more important. What you think is more important is going to be the one that is going to be more important for you. So I fixed my program and I started training well. I got my shit together, and now because I have good training, it really doesn't matter that much what I do with my diet. If I go into calorie deficit, obviously that matters, but if I do a small calorie surplus, it's already enough. I don't need a big calorie surplus like I did before. Now the small one works as well, and even if I maintain for a little while, it also does work. Nothing really happens, my gains don't stop. Obviously my muscle gains slow down because they're not gonna be as quick at maintenance as when you're bulking. But if I have a month where something happened and for some reason I didn't gain any weight, my lifts are still going up. Oh yeah, and by the way, I don't track anything anymore. I used to have to track all of my calories all the time. Every single thing that went in my mouth I would track, which sounds really bad. But now that I have good training, that is not the case anymore. I don't track anything. The only thing that I track is that I usually have like 3 to 4 meals every single day, and besides that I don't really pay a lot of attention towards diet. So the short answer to the question is that whichever you think is more important is going to be the more important, because you essentially manifest which one is the more important. But the real answer is training, because when your diet is the one that you think is more important, your diet is going to be the more important, and when you fuck up your diet, everything else goes. You have to be very meticulous about your diet, and that's not something that's very easy to be meticulous about, because your life changes, your circumstances constantly change. You cannot always eat the same food, you cannot always track and measure everything. But when your training is the more important part, you literally just have to go to the gym like, what, 3-4 times a week? Maybe 5 if you're more advanced, and you just have to dial that in. You just do an hour or an hour and a half long sessions, and you're good. And if your training is good, you can almost ignore your diet. You literally just have to have a good enough diet. You don't have to have a perfect diet. You don't have to have a crazy big calorie surplus or anything. you can just live your life and have a small calorie surplus and occasionally fuck up and not have any, and you're still going to make gains. And when you're cutting, you won't have to go super slow because, oh, I'm afraid that I will lose my muscle. That will not happen because you have good training. So great training with an okay diet equals great gains. Okay training with a great diet equals okay gains. So at the end of the day, what is really going to determine your gains is going to be training, which means that training is the more important. But that's not everything, because you don't know yet the most important asset of the natural lifter, which you will absolutely need to know if you want to make gains long term. So click here to watch my last video.